Hi, and welcome to another of Mr. Bench's book reviews. What's in the box today? It is a littlish one. Hardback. It's called When the Clock Struck 13 by Sheila McCullagh. It's from the Puddle Lane series, as you can see. There's Puddle Lane on the back, the lane itself. And yeah, front cover, there's a bloke with a hammer, hammering a bell, and a bird or two. Not sure if those are other birds or if those are feathers emanating from this bird, but maybe that will be revealed. And I quite like this. You have another picture of the lane, the Puddle Lane, on the, what do we call this, the inside cover. Yeah, it's written by Sheila McCullagh and it's illustrated by John Davis, which is nice. An old house stood in the middle of a town. It stood in the middle of a garden. So the house is in the middle of a town, in the middle of a garden. It's because the garden's in the middle of the town as well. An old man lived in the old house. Oh, lots of, almost like funny bones. An old man lived in the old house, and the old man was a magician. Doesn't say if he's in the middle of the house or not. He's having a snooze on a chair currently. Oh, and look, on the very first page, you can see what looks a bit like a bell tower. I wonder if that will be where the guys start striking 13. The house had a strange clock. There we go. The clock was in a little tower on the roof of the house. A bell hung in the tower just under the clock. That's not that strange. There was a boy who was made of iron near the clock. There he is. Saw him on the front cover. He's got his little mallet hammer. I think you call them hammers with bells. And he's going to hammer that bell. And there's the clock. It's 4 o'clock currently. The iron boy stood by the bell. One thing I should point out is that I think this is one of these read-along books. The font here is slightly smaller than it is down here. And it's possible that these sentences are supposed to be slightly easier to read than these ones as well. Although word like magician is a bit tricky. But even iron is weird. But yeah, I think it's kind of short, right? The iron boy stood by the bell. I mean, it's acting a bit like a caption, but I think the idea is that the grown-up or more advanced reader reads this side, and then the less advanced reader would read that side. But I'm just going to read it all. Here we go. The boy had a silver hammer. Quite like this, the way they're confirming what you're already seeing a little bit in the pictures. This is the picture from the front cover. Well, it's very similar anyway, if not 100% identical. I mean, I think it's slightly more zoomed in and slightly tilted, but it's pretty much the same. The boy had a silver hammer. Doesn't say if it's silver coloured or made from the metal silver. At 1 o'clock, it was 4 o'clock in the last picture, so I guess 9 hours have passed. The iron boy lifted his silver hammer. He struck the bell once. Dong. Or dong, however you want to pronounce that. Well, that's not that strange. This was a strange clock. Striking the bell once at 1 o'clock is fairly standard behaviour. At 2 o'clock, and that's nice, there's 2 o'clock in the text, and the picture is showing 2 o'clock. The iron boy, excuse me, lifted his silver hammer. He struck the bell twice. Dong, dong. The first dong has a comma after it, and the second dong has an exclamation mark. So it's almost as though it's not dong, dong, but it's more like dong, dong. So that is a bit odd. Maybe that's weird. What's weird about the clock? The rhythm of the dongs. Would be a good name for a book, actually. The Rhythm of the Dongs. It's not what they've called this one, though. This was an iron boy. I guess if they're saying he's an iron boy, then probably the hammer is made of silver. It probably is the metal, to contrast with the iron boy, because iron isn't really a colour. It's just specifying the metal different things are made of. At 3 o'clock, even though the picture shows... Oh, right, well, it's 4 on the next page. At 3 o'clock, who can guess? The iron boy lifted his silver hammer. He struck the bell 3 times. Dong, dong, dong. There's no exclamation mark there either. So that's just dong, dong, dong. Well, they're common, so it's dong, dong, dong. But fairly mild dongs at 3. Don't want to wake people up. Although this is probably 3 in the afternoon, judging by the colour of the sky. There's an owl there, who's up early, although it may be napping. Can't really tell. At 4 o'clock, and the clock is showing 4. Must be autumn or winter because it's already almost sunset at 4. The iron boy lifted his silver hammer. He struck the bell 4 times. Dong, 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 dong. Again, exclamation mark, free donging there. And so it went on all day and all night. Every day for many years. At every hour the iron boy struck the bell with his silver hammer. But one night everything changed. Ooh. It's 11 o'clock in that picture, and this one we can't see. The sun had set and the moon came out. The moon shone down on the old house. It seems to be a full moon. That's often in these kinds of stories. Weird things happen when the moon is full. People get a bit crazy. So maybe the iron boy is going to go crazy. The moon shone down on the old house. The moon shone on the clock, and it shone on the iron boy. That's what moons will do. The hands of the clock moved on to 12. There they are, it's midnight. The iron boy lifted his silver hammer. One quite nice thing, there's a weather vane on the top of the tower. And like the boy's on the north side. And I think they've been a bit careful about making sure he's always on the north whenever the compass points are visible. So that's nice. So the hands of the clock moved on to 12. The iron boy lifted his silver hammer. He struck the bell 12 times. Dong, 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 dong. But then there's not a full stop. There's a very enticing end dash. So it encourages you to turn over quickly. The owl's awake now, it's flapping. Midnight. Oh, okay. But then a very strange thing happened. The iron boy lifted his silver hammer and struck the bell again. Even though it's 12 o'clock. He's gone insane. Or he's just an hour early. Or the clocks have moved. It's possible the clocks move forward at midnight to 1. So after 12 it's just immediately 1. That would be the most logical explanation. That in Puddle Lane the clocks move at midnight. But no, it's strange apparently, so that's probably not what's going on. He had struck the bell 13 times. It doesn't give you a dong for that. So that's strange. He strikes the bell donglessly. A dong-free strike, and at the wrong time. He had struck the bell 13 times, or 12 and 1, depending on how you want to pause his striking. And suddenly the iron boy found that he was free. All his life, if you can consider him living, his feet had been fastened to the stones of the old house. He had never done anything but strike the bell, but now he could move. At first, I mean there is movement involved in striking, but I guess they mean now he could walk or be mobile. Yeah, move can mean different things. At first he could scarcely believe it. He lifted one foot. Then he lifted the other. It was true. He could move. That's interesting. So he's had some sort of sensation. Oh, now I can move, before actually verifying it by moving. So I don't know how that's it's just come over him that he's like, I can move. Maybe you could move all along. You just never thought of trying it out. The owl's there again, peering. He's climbing up on the roof on this next picture. The iron boy looked down on the roof of the house. He saw a skylight in the roof. The skylight was open. A light shone in the room below. Yeah, these are the sentences for the less sophisticated reader, and you can tell like they don't have so many buts and thens. It's more telegram style. He saw a skylight in the roof. The skylight was open. Stop. A light shone in the room below. Stop. Whereas here it's more like all his life, like more adverbial phrases, and but now he could move. At first he could scarcely believe it. Then he lifted the other. Like, there are much more of these kind of words to kind of make it flow a bit better, and in the thing for the beginner it's a bit shorter and more to the point. Some would say better writing, but I quite like filler sometimes, because without filler, what do we have? We just have emptiness. So that was page 19. The iron boy climbed slowly down the roof. He felt very stiff to begin with. Excuse me. But as he went on, he moved more easily. He made his way down to the skylight. It's quite a nice angle. They've got him peering in, so you're looking up. There's the magician sleeping still, and you've got him the view from the living room or whatever it is. He looked down into the room. They don't say which room. I guess it's some sort of attic room if it's got the roof above it. The magician was sitting by a fire. He was fast asleep in his chair. They give you a comma between asleep and in there. He was fast asleep in his chair. Fair enough. Maybe it makes it easy to read. The iron boy dropped down into the room below. He landed on the floor with a crash. That's what iron... He's still got his silver hammer with him, by the way. The magician woke up. He saw the iron boy. Oh dear, look at his face there. Can you see that? He looks a little bit alarmed. There's a skull on his mantelpiece, which is a bit macabre. Don't know if he's an evil magician. Don't really say. I mean, he's not wearing black. He's wearing purple and stars. So expect him to be fairly friendly. You never know with magicians. What on earth are you doing here? Cried the magician, always cross. They've bolded you as well. You're supposed to be up on the roof by the clock. You're supposed to be striking the bell. I've been striking that bell for years and years, said the iron boy. I've always struck the right time, until tonight. But tonight it was different. At midnight I struck the bell 13 times. So he's paused it like that. And I was free. This freedom seems to be a bit of a theme. There's a crow there looking very cross as well. I don't know why that's... Maybe it's been awoken by the boy as well and doesn't like it. The magician looked at the iron boy. Do you want to be free? He said. I want to be free, said the iron boy. Some people just say yes in that situation, but he's, I guess, by repeating the fact that he wants to be free, he's sounding more confident, and also if you like say the words, it helps him go over the decision a bit more carefully for himself. Are you sure? Asked the magician. The world is a dangerous place. You're quite safe up there by the clock. They've put a comma after safe there as well. They seem to do this quite a lot. Maybe it's a McCullagh thing. That's the author. All you have to do is to strike the bell. I wouldn't put to in that sense. All you have to do is strike the bell is how I'd normally say that, but I guess this was published a few years ago. Copyright, it's Roman numerals, but it's copyright something like 1985. I think that's right. MCMLXXXV. All you have to do is to strike the bell. There's a comma in there as well. I don't know. Maybe it makes it easier to read. And this is apparently reading program stage 4. So maybe breaking up the clauses more with commas makes them easier to read and figure out. Anyway, maybe that's what the magician was thinking. It's a useful thing to do. Everyone who hears you, comma, don't know about that, knows what time it is. Or maybe it's just the magician's way of talking. Maybe he just has a very deliberate style where he makes these pauses for effect. Knows what time it is. I want to be free, said the iron boy. I want to be free. It's 3 times he said that now. There's something intriguing on this picture. There's a big plate and it says, you probably can't read it on the low res camera, but it says flying saucer on the edge. Wonder if that'll be of interest. Excuse me. I've got a bit of a cough. The magician sighed. I want to be free, that's 4 times, said the iron boy. And what is more, I want to grow up. I want to be alive. Well, that's interesting, because earlier they said all his life, or something, he'd only been standing around striking the bell. But saying I want to be alive implies he isn't alive. So, I don't know if inert things can have a life, or if that's just a colloquial usage of life. Like, basically, existence. Whether there's life in the existing object or not. I've seen children alive in the lane. It's a weird turn of phrase, too. I've seen children alive. I mean, he's the iron boy, doesn't really know what he's talking about, but normally he'd say, I've seen children who are alive, or I've seen live children, although that might sound weird, too. Anyway, as I stood up there by the clock... Oh, excuse me. I want to be like them. The magician sighed again. I have a magic silver dust that makes toy animals come alive, he said. But it doesn't work with people. It will be very difficult for you to change into a real boy. Well, he's distinguishing real from... He's using real like the iron boy is using alive, I guess. I don't care, said the iron boy. I want to be alive. Well, he doesn't care that the dust doesn't work. Okay. The magician sighed once more. He picked up an old map. That's an old magician in an old house with an old map that was lying on the table. You will have to go away, said the magician. He's fed up. You will have to go a long way away. Oh no, he doesn't mean go away, like get out of here. He means you'll have to go to another place. Pretty menacing, that picture. You've got the magician looking at his map, and you've got Iron Boy here lurking behind him with his silver hammer, looking like he's about to brain him with it. Well, he's got a really slightly sinister look on his face, but maybe that's just the way he's been sculpted. But I'd watch myself if I were that magician. I will... He looks so much more friendly in this next picture than it is. I will go anywhere, said the Iron Boy. Then you must make a long journey, said the magician. A long way away, there is a magical country. It is called the country of Zorn. Z-O-R-N. In German, the word Z-O-R-N is pronounced Zorn. It means like rage or anger, fury. I don't know if they're going for a connotation there. He unrolled the map. You must go to the country of Zorn, he said, and when you are there, you must find your way to the Blue Mountains. High up in the Blue Mountains, you will find the Silver River. Is that molten silver, then? Or is that might just be the colour silver? Yeah, because you've got Blue Mountains, Silver River, so in that context, silver is contrasting with the colour of the mountains, so silver's being used as a colour. If it were the Iron Mountains and the Silver River, then you would expect silver to be the metal. So that's actually quite a nice hint to the reader about which silver is meant. The river runs down the mountain and into a great cave. If you bathe in the Silver River, you will become really alive. Well, really alive is combining the two terms from earlier. You know, we had I want to be alive, and talking about real boy, and how he's really alive, so it's like really doubling down. For emphasis, how can I get there? Asked the Iron Boy. How can I find the way? Or with the map. Not even following. The magician got up and put away his map. Oh, so not with the map. I can send you to the edge of the country of Zorn in a flying saucer. Oh, we noticed that flying saucer a few pages ago, didn't we? He said, but after that, you must find your own way to the mountains. It will be a dangerous journey. You would be much safer if you stayed here with me. So he's still trying to convince him to stay. I mean, I guess he wants to know the time every hour. So he wants Boy back on the roof. When can I go? Asked the Iron Boy. He's just ignoring him. Ignoring the magician's wishes. You can start at once, said the magician. I will send you off in the flying saucer. There it is again. It still says flying saucer on it. Which is pretty useful because you don't want to accidentally get the wrong saucer and send your Iron Boy off in a regulation saucer that doesn't fly. I'm ready, said the Iron Boy. But before I go, please tell me my name. You haven't a name. Now that sounds old-fashioned, but that's probably just magician speak. Saying you haven't a name rather than you don't have a name or you haven't got a name. Or you have no name even. You haven't a name, said the magician. You will find a name when you bathe in the Silver River. Not quite sure how that happens. There was a big saucer on the table. Now that's very much for your junior reader, just a little thing. I don't even knew there was a saucer on the table, really. He can change his facial expression. Iron Boy. The magician can as well. Looks a bit like a Klingon in that picture. But, the boy's looking a bit anxious on that one. He's still got his hammer with him. He picked up the Iron Boy. I'm not sure if he always holds the hammer in both hands, if it's like stuck in his hands. No, it doesn't seem to be. He only has one hand on it as he is crashing into the room. Okay, so the magician picked up the Iron Boy. Some cool camera angles here. I mean, perspectives on the drawing. And put him down in the middle of the saucer. You're quite sure that you want to go? He said. If you once go to the country of Zorn, you can never come back. If you once go is a bit weird, so that's just magician-ese. I'm quite sure, said the Iron Boy, I want to be alive. Very well, said the magician. I will let you go. The flying saucer will take you there and fly back here to me. I mean, I don't know what he gets out of being alive. I mean, at the moment, he can move, he can talk, he can change his facial expression. He can express desire. So I don't quite know what the transformation into really alive is going to bring in terms of benefits. But he wants to be anyway. Anyway, he's going to let him go, and then he says, the flying saucer will take you there and fly back here to me. Oh, that's a clever saucer. The magician muttered a spell. He put his hand on the flying saucer and pressed a red button. There was a big red circle in the middle. That must have been the red button. Then he snapped his fingers, which I guess is what I would call clicking your fingers. He's got a nice pestle and mortar in the background. That must be made for making potions. The saucer flew up off the table. It flew to the window blew open. The flying saucer flew out of the window. Again, that's quite telegram-styly there. It is very noticeable, the two different styles. It must be quite difficult to write a book in two different styles, like interwoven like this. And you could say it's a bit jarring when you're just trying to read the whole thing, but I think you get away with it. Anyway, so it flew out of the window. You could almost use that for learning prepositions. Look, the saucer flew up off the table, it flew to the window blew open. The flying saucer flew out of the window. Yeah, these books where they, I think there's one called some sort of bears, And basically they go somewhere, and they go like out of bed, across the hall, to the window, through the window, down the tree. Don't remember which bears that is. I think they're just called like the Bearson Bears or something. That's probably wrong. It's not in the Puddle Lane series though, so that's a bit of a tangent. Okay, this is the last page. The moon was shining down. The flying saucer flew over the roofs of the town. It flew over the houses and over the trees, over the hills and under the stars. It's a funny thing to say. But okay. It flew to the edge of the country of Zorn, carrying the Iron Boy. The flying saucer landed in the country of Zorn, and the Iron Boy stepped out. He was standing on the edge of a forest. Well, that's quite nice, because this is the last page. So he ends up on the edge of a forest, on the edge of the country of Zorn. And right on the first page, there was a house, an old house, in the middle of a town, in the middle of a garden. So you go from the middle and the middle, which is a metaphor for safety, familiarity, surrounded by, you know, you're kind of right at the heart of everything. And now he's on the edge of something new, so it's like adventure, unknown, and that kind of bookends the whole book. That's pretty good. If I were McCullagh, I would be pretty satisfied of having come up with that. Yeah, so he's on the edge of the forest. The Iron Boy looked back at the trees. A big white owl came flying over the treetops. The owl earlier was brown, so this will be a different owl. And ... But that is another story. Ooh. So foreshadowing a sequel of some sort. And then it just says, the Iron Boy in the country of Zorn, which is kind of just a caption. So the picture, some of these ones were almost captions. He looks a bit worried there. But yes, excellent ending. I mean, not just the fact it's pointing to the next story, but this edge of the edge after the middle of the middle. One of the best things I've read in a long time. So, well done, McCullagh. I shall be reading the next one. I have the next one. As I said, that is another story. I think there are 5 in this series. It like forms a whole story, and I will probably do them all at one point or another. So do look out for that. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the Iron Boy. And I shall see you next time for another of Mr. Bench's book reviews. Bye.